I realize that many of you may be in the market for console-supported controllers, and you may assume that it's supported because it's made by Turtle Beach. And there has been a very big update in the firmware since the launch of the FTD touchscreen. Older videos may highlight negatives that are no longer part of this HOTAS, which is why there's an updated video. So when talking about this new HOTAS unit from Turtle Beach, it's a little bit like peeling apart an onion packed inside another larger onion. It's my belief that the Turtle Beach Velocity One Flight Stick HOTAS, which is the product's full name, probably began as a meeting several years ago that may have been titled "No Crazy Idea is Too Crazy," and for the rest of the video, I'm just going to call it Joystick or Throttle when talking about the individual parts, and I'm going to use HOTAS when discussing both parts for clarity. It looks like the better ideas from that meeting seem to have been added seamlessly into this HOTAS. Most of them are truly innovative, and there are a lot of them to talk about, but I want to start with the most important question, which is, does this HOTAS come with a good joystick? Because you probably won't care about any of it if the stick itself is junk, right? Over a year ago, I did review the Turtle Beach Velocity One Flight Stick, and I titled that video Almost Perfect. And almost perfect because that stick would have gotten a near perfect endorsement as the better mid-entry stick if it wasn't for how the stick was tuned. It was constructed very well, and it operates with precision. For brevity, the details about all of that is already summarized in the review that's linked up for you right now, and you will find the relevant information at time index 8 minutes and 12 seconds in that video. Moving on. The new joystick is not just the old stick with new stuff on it. It's all new internals. This new stick feels much better when compared to the original flight stick that I previously reviewed. And I'm going to say now that it's much better than almost perfect because the tuning for its spring and curves are much better and very easy to live with. On this new stick, to deflect from neutral still requires more initial force than I feel is necessary, but it's much more manageable. And with a little bit of time of using it, none of this will impede your accuracy or precision. There are no provisions to tune like a more expensive joystick, but to me that's perfectly reasonable even at this upper mid-entry price point. $550 is still a big investment, but you get both parts of a HOTAS. And I will say at the beginning of the video that I feel that what you get is a reasonable value when you buy this. None of the features are new by themselves, but their combination into one device set is where the interest is. Turtle Beach has always tricked me because when I'm trying to guess the price point of the part, I always seem to estimate a little bit higher, maybe $50 or $100 more for what they're actually selling it for. They've never tried to compete against the high end, and that's fine. They don't have to due to their pricing. Turtle Beach has always had a great unboxing with everything protected for shipping. The box exterior has a very detailed breakdown of the features and everything is fully recyclable. Included with the set are a pair of extra long, super quality flexible USB-A to USB-C wires and a small bag with M5 bolts for mounting to desk mounts or to your sim system. The grip on the joystick is right hand only, unlike the flight stick, so if you need it to be left hand or dual hand, this is not the product for you. Each part weighs 1.5 kilograms, which is just over 3 pounds for my American friends. The underside is a very heavy metal base and soft rubber feet, which help to keep things in place for normal use. And I said help because sitting flat on a table, it's still quite easy to tip the stick or throttle forward if you're not mindful. And that's not unique to Turtle Beach because the same thing happens to T16000M and VKB NXT. The frame is done in semi-gloss black plastic. The sides are finished with a very dark bronze gunmetal. The hand surfaces are covered with a black rubbery skin. It's pretty easy to keep this clean with a wet cloth, and that restores its matte black finish. It warms up nicely to your hand. It never felt damp, clammy, or greasy. This coating seems to be bonded quite well, but I had a person in Discord send me some photos of theirs which had delaminated a little bit. This never happened to me, but your mileage may vary. The set includes a pair of strong haptic motors, but a little bit more on that soon. The throttle glides nicely and can be split with a large button on the left side. Click on and then click off like the top of a retractable pen. The throttle has clear gradient markings printed in high contrast white. The throttle has a pair of illuminated windows marking these important throttle states. Every bindable switch is clearly labeled to help speed up your binding setup. The throttle and joystick each have 8 user-definable RGB illumination zones. They are named 10 different presets like Fighter, Danger, Space, Night, Night, Cyber, and some others, some presets create a great gradient looking dual zone effect, and you can take total control of all of the RGB in all 16 zones within the PC app. You can dim them, and best of all, you can disable them, but it does actually make it quite difficult to find everything in the dark. I really just like the green fighter theme. It's not distracting at all. Next, I want to highlight that almost every setting or option can be configured or controlled through many different ways. There's a PC app called Flight Hanger, and there are 2 screens on the actual HOTAS. The throttle-mounted large touchscreen is called a Flight Touch Display. For the rest of the video, I'm going to call it FTD. The FTD could probably be its own full-length video, but I'm going to try to summarize it a little bit later on in this video. The smaller non-touch display, which is on top of the joystick, lets you adjust settings to the stick, exactly like the FTD does for the throttle. And once again, these menu systems mirror the features which are available on the PC app. Another unique feature is central within the grip. There is a thumb mini glide pad that when pressed down, left clicks and initiates a mouse click. You can right mouse click by pulling stage 2 of the main trigger, which is a little awkward, and as you pass your thumb over it, that will move the pointer of your mouse cursor. Luckily, there is a red lockout lever to prevent any of this happening by accident. It works, but if you have very dry skin, or if you're like me who has led an active life, you may have scars all over the surface of your thumbprint, which seems to confuse the sensor somewhat and makes it harder to be very precise when using this. You can customize the sensitivity of all of this, and I found it to be good in a pinch to do basic things like launching a game from the desktop or Steam, and I did find it very useful to move the cursor off the screen if that was in your view. The joystick base has an onboard DAC for you to plug in your non-USB wired headphones. Through the PC app and through the menu system for the stick, you have individual control over mic gain, game volume, plus microphone mute, and several baked-in presets for an EQ. The set connects through a pair of USB-C ports, one on each base. The number and types of bindings will be discussed later, but I will address a quality issue that I did not like. I was very disappointed with only the bindings on the front of the joystick base. There are 3 toggle switches on the left, and each of these have plastic caps that are just pressed onto a metal switch. The metal switch is very good, but the cap is just placed over it. Mine wiggled and eventually fell off. I did use some crazy glue, and that was a 2-minute fix that completely solved the issue. The 5 buttons on the right look great. They are back illuminated very nicely, they're labeled clearly, and have a faux carbon look. They are adequate and durable, but they only feel good and return feedback well when pressed directly in the middle. They are fine, and I'm probably being overly critical of a binding that will probably not be used very often. In future design, I would ask Turtle Beach to go look at how the big rubber buttons are on a DJ mixing console. The main axis is next. As I said previously in the video, they addressed both issues that I had with the original flight stick because the range of deflection is also greater and you get more angular area to be precise with. This combined with the new tuning and the recentering mechanism is very good. The sensors are Hall effect magnetic and precisely interpret my inputs. The sensors able to report between 2047 individual points of data from full negative to full positive. By default, there is no dead zone anywhere on this set, which is exactly as it should be if the company in fact has confidence in their sensor. In Flight Hanger software and through the screens, you do have the ability to apply whatever dead zone you want to achieve the specific performance you need, and despite being listed in the menu as having a linear curve, I did feel a slightly parabolic relationship between the position and the reported position. Even on pure linear, as you get closer to the edge of deflection, the displacement value increases, which was probably added to the joystick to aid in precise aiming and make it feel good to use, which is perfectly fine. You have the option to make the curve quicker or more precise in the app, but this is an all or nothing thing with no real granularity. They have added a feature called Pro Aim, which is a modifier to the curve. You can define a binding to activate it, and you can also select a sensitivity value, which when you activate will temporarily change how the stick works. So in theory, it gives you Pro Aim, or in theory, an advantage. The throttle axes are tuned to a near perfect motion with the exact resistance that I wanted to keep them in place until moved. And even when they bottom out, things continue to feel really solid. In the Flight Hanger app and on the FTD screen, you may add a haptic buzz to both grips and the base, which can work as a hard detent. Hard detents are used to let the pilot know when they've crossed from military to afterburner or when crossing from low idle to fuel cutoff. Because these are user definable infinitely, you're able to move these to the exact location that the event happens. When tuning this, there is a visual screen to help you on the FTD and in the PC app. You have control over what part vibrates and when, and you can quickly toggle these effects. The grip also has strong haptics. For example, I can set it to if I cross past 95% of deflection in any axis, the grip would start vibrating to presumably let me know that I'm reaching the limit. I don't know when or why I would ever want this, so please comment your comments in the comments. Please let us know how you might use this feature, and yes, of course, it can be disabled. Like the grip, the vast range of binding types are all placed within easy reach. You can hot swap and fully remove the grip from the base through a metal threaded adapter. I was very pleased to see that the electrical connection is made through 6 gold-plated spring-loaded pins. This superior design would be highly resistant to signal drop-off. Are they planning to release new grips? Possibly, but likely not. I think that this was just done mainly to reduce the shipping volume to keep costs lower. It does open up a great option for RMA cases where if a switch on the grip fails, they could simply replace the grip. The grip can extend by 1.5 centimeters or half an inch for my American friends. When extended, there are some gaps that form, but the larger hand would probably have no contact in these gaps, and this is a welcome addition in ergonomics. I want to highlight the tuning on the double stage trigger. It's textbook, with the first click registering as soon as you pull, and the second is 1 millimeter before you bottom out. Perfect trigger shape that keeps your finger in place, and it's slightly rounded for comfort. This is easily an 11 out of 10 for trigger design. The feedback throughout all of the bindings can be felt with either a light audible click or a tactile bump when twisting dials or hump when moving levers. I'm going to try to tackle the FTD, and then I will cover the vast list of bindings, and then I will end on my thoughts. The FTD is really strong, especially after the last update, and has the potential to be one of the best MFD replacements on the market if it weren't for 2 simple things. Like many touchscreens, the user needs to be very precise with their big fat fingers, and this has more to do with the screen size and the touch resolution. It is very easy to click what you want, but it becomes harder to click what you want quickly with accuracy. It's great for simple things like lights, but it should not be relied to release countermeasures or cycle through a list of possible enemies. Second, there's a little bit of lag, about a half a second between when you press on the screen and when the screen changes. But in reality, that lag needs to catch up and you may have clicked again in the heat of the moment. And my third negative was actually fully patched out with firmware 1.7. This is the power of feedback, and if you're watching an old review, perk up and please pay attention. With the most current patch, you can now fully customize the MFD. The FTD on the throttle is now completely updatable. You have up to 3 MFD pages that can be configured with 3 different themes, which are space, combat, and commercial. These 3 pages of MFDs are similar to others that you've seen, such as Stream Deck, Game Glass, or others, to design a very powerful, user-definable external controller box. With a Stream Deck, you define how the button works, you choose what keyboard binding it pushes, and then you choose what the button looks like. As an advantage for the Stream Deck, it's a physical button, and that is easier to touch and be sure that the button was totally pressed, because you can actually feel it. You may like to make a toggle button that presses the letter G to raise or lower the landing gear on the left side of the FTD. The FTD works mostly like a Stream Deck. Within the Hanger app, you can quickly load between saved profiles for use, or you can just start from scratch and further edit something completely bespoke. I think the intent is to have the user able to make profiles which can be shared, such as a profile for Microsoft Flight Sim, which is all pre-baked and ready to use. You can create your own and may start with as many as 3 blank pages. Name the pages as you would like, and then drag the type of binding you like to where it is on the big screen, and then you just define what the key binding does. Now all I need to do is choose what type of button I want from the choices, drag it into the slot where I want it, customize the text, and then I can switch over and define what binding that spot presses. You repeat this process for as many things as you like. Different pages have their own themes to help distinguish them from others. We're not done with this FTD. There are more settings that can be changed directly on the screen by swiping left or right with the arrow on the screen. Navigate to the menu list, which is its own page. The features are further broken down into the following tabs. You have key binding page, which will let you load what cells of the MFD are bound to, and these still do need to be set up in the PC app. You have haptic detents page. You can change them in real time by touching or dragging items on the screen. Rear scroll wheel is a display of what the trim scroll wheel is doing on the front side of the throttle grip. You can also make big changes here on how it behaves by switching between a wheel axis and a binary encoder. Autopilot dials define how the 4 encoders on the base operate much the same way as the trim wheel. One blip when turned, and if you want to adjust the sensitivity of the click, you can set each to flash 1, 2, or 3 times per bump, per rotation. You have the pre-baked lighting effects for the throttle only, and this will override the settings in the PC Hanger app. You can check to see which version of your firmware is, and that rounds out the full functionality of the FTD menu. The joystick also has its own sort of FTD in the form of a small non-touch screen. This one might be seen more as a little bit more of a gimmick because it mostly shows you information that you either already know or wouldn't really need to know, right? It's cool. The screen, however, can also be your gateway to the tuning menus that are also found in the PC app, and those you can access without the need for Alt-Tab from the game. You press and hold the thumb switch for 5 seconds and then navigate the menu using up-down and then right to enter and left is for back. I'll go through it quickly. The first is a chrono, which is visible on the screen. Stop, start, reset are your options, just like a normal chronometer, and this might serve to remind you how long you've been playing a video game, right? If you wanted to know that. The touchpad submenu allows you to adjust the sensitivity of the touchpad with a visual graph. Pro Aim allows you to define which button activates the feature and how sensitive it is when it's active. You have rudder lock, which electronically disables or enables the Z twist. Audio lets you make changes to the onboard DAC, volume levels, EQ, and that kind of stuff. Thumb wheel lets you tune how the binding works, same as what was done on the throttle. And haptics will let you adjust how strong the effect is, and there's also a simple enable disable toggle. Performance will provide you a visual of what the stick is doing for problem solving. This is quite unique and very cool. It will also let you switch between stored profiles, and you can also edit the dead zone for axes in increments of 10%, which is simply too much to be useful. This would be more useful if it was limited to 1% increments. Lighting will let you choose what RGB profile is done directly on the stick, and firmware will show you the current firmware. I will cover the bindings. They list 33 per device and 7 axes on the throttle and 6 on the joystick. On the throttle, B1 is the push-in on thumb mini stick. 2, 3, 4 are 3 stacked bindings behind the mini stick. 5 and 6 are normally off 3-way latched switch. 7, 8, 9, 10 are the up, down, left, right of a 4-way castle on the front side. 11 is the momentary next to it. 12, 13 is up, down of a normally closed momentary rocker. 14, 15 is a second similar switch mounted next to it on the front left side. 16 and 17 are bindings that become active at the extremities of the flap axis. 18 is the big red button. 19 and 20 are bindings that are active at the extremities of the left throttle axis. 20, 21 are bindings that are active at the extremities of the right throttle axis. 23 is push-in on the top encoder. 24, 25 are stepped twist left or right on the large encoder. 26 and 27 are stepped left or right twist on the small encoder. 28 is push down. 29 is left, 30 is right twist of the middle encoder, 31 is push, 32 is left, 33 is right twist of the lower encoder. We jump to 41, 42, which are the up-down encoders on the front-mounted scroll wheel. And please note, 24, 25, 41, and 42 are only active if these encoders are not being used as axes. The axes are as follows. You have X and Y are the left and right throttle, sliders the flap lever, RX, RY are the 2 axes of the mini stick, RZ is the circular disc that rotates around the mini stick, and Z axis is the lower part of the top encoder axis combo. The axis listed as dial is the front mounted scroller, and don't forget that you have the entire FTD, which can be up to 3 pages of 15 bindings each. The joystick is similarly dotted with a range of bindings all over. B1 is the thumb-mounted fire button that is active when the lock switch is down and it becomes left mouse when the lock is up. B2 is the second stage of the main trigger when the lock is down, but it's a right mouse click when the lock is up. B3 is push in on the left mini stick. B4, 5, 6, 7 is the 4-way on your thumb when not in the menu system. You can enter and exit the menu through the button that's just below it. You press and hold that for 5 seconds to activate and then navigate with 4, 5, 6, 7, which become inactive as bindings when you're in the menu. B8 is click in on the mouse style scroll wheel. B9 is the high mounted button that can be used by your right index or thumb. And you can think of this a little bit like your pinky switch, but it's been raised up a little bit. 10 becomes active at the end of the brake lever pull. 11 to 15 are the illuminated buttons on the right side of the base. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 are the 3 two-way rockers. The outer 2 are dead man, then the middle one is latched. 22 is the start stop momentary on the base. 23, 24 is a super satisfying gear lever that has a big chunky clunk when used. 25, 26, 27 are a 3-way mode switch that rotates between the bindings with only one being active at any moment. 28 is the stage 1 of the main trigger. 29 and 30 are up and down scroll of the mouse style wheel. 31, 32, 33 are the 3 small buttons on the front middle of the base, and there's a pair of 4-way hat switches on the face of the grip. And I'm quite sure that this rivals all other joysticks on the market as the most bindings on one device set. The axes are as follows. X and Y are your main axis. Z is twist with a nice center detent. RZ is the analog brake lever. RX and RY are the 2 axes of the mini stick, and slider is up and down of the mouse style scroll wheel. Who is this for? Should it be considered as a good value? Are there other options? And my final thoughts. This should be seen as a great starting point for a person who has nothing and is sure that they want to use a HOTAS. Many of the features may not be critical when deciding between this and something else, but the quality is still there. The buttons are mostly very satisfying to use, and I've never heard of anyone telling me that their joystick has too many bindings. You get some groundbreaking features such as this MFD button box and its menu system. You have a stick that is still tuned quite strongly, and you lack the ability to customize with cams and springs, but it is light years better than the previous flight stick. I appreciate a company who's willing to make changes based on feedback, and I appreciate a company who's willing to grow a pair, take a risk, and innovate in a market that seems to be quite okay to just push tried and tested. In this market, you have some options which are to pick up VKB NXT, VKB Throttle, and some form of a Stream Deck. If you decide to go that route, you will pay a little bit more, but you will gain the ability to tune and tension the X and Y, but the Turtle Beach throttle feels super nice, and the set is packed with many more features to explore. None of the extras come at a cost of its performance. Plus, the set is available from major vendors such as Best Buy and Amazon, which eliminates shipping and duty costs for most. I appreciate the super boutique offerings on the market, but all of that comes at a higher budget. The Turtle Beach HOTAS is the real deal with a futuristic aesthetic, and it's clear that the team spent many months crafting it for us consumers. And I feel that that's all I need to say about the Turtle Beach Flight Deck HOTAS. The controller market continues to evolve, so please subscribe and watch out for more reviews like this one. My goal is to grow, and I can't do that without the help of supporters like you. Thank you for spending your time with me. Fly safe.